Yeah, this is something that I decided that I wanted to do a long time ago, but I just didn't finish it immediately. Anyways, so all this discussion about good and evil in terms of races being either good or evil. Well, I spent a lot of time ruminating on my thoughts on the matter and collected my thoughts to make a short dissertation about them. And I hope people will find this as a thought-provoking examination of the concept of evil races. Anyway, let's move on. These are not orcs. These are Skrulls. Why? Because I'm a Marvel Comics fan, and I have actually known what Skrulls are for longer than I've even heard of orcs. Yes, that's right. I started watching Saturday morning cartoons and saw Skrulls in Saturday morning cartoons before I had ever heard of orcs. So I'm going to use Skrulls as an example. Anyways, so a little bit about my personal perspective on the good versus evil thing. See, I'm a retired U.S. Army veteran, and I've been around the world, several countries, seen all kinds of things, and I don't see humans in real life as a good race by TTRPG standards, and that that makes a huge difference in how I look at fictional races. See, you look at fictional races, and most of them are just aspects of the way humans do things in real life, or exaggerations of the way people do things in real life. They aren't something that exists in a vacuum. They exist as in some way related to the way humans do things in real life. But that also means that all of the evil races are reflections of humanity's dark side. All of them. Every single one. And that, as the starting point of a discussion of evil races, that drastically redefines the concept of good and evil races. Anyway, so what does this mean about doing this in an actual TTRPG? Good and evil as damage types? No, because good and evil are about choices you make. And innately evil races, you need to have a very, very special in-universe explanation of what makes a race good or evil. Because good and evil are about choices. So if every member of a race is evil, or almost every member of a race is evil, there needs to be a reason for it. And that reason can actually just be as simple as they were raised that way. It really can. But it needs to be something that you actually have, even if it's arguably simplistic and one-dimensional. You actually need to have an in-universe logic for it, because of the fact that in-universe logic is what dictates the actions of characters. If you don't have a solidly defined in-universe logic for how characters behave, then you don't know what your own characters exist to do. And that is one of the things that I found to be so interesting using Skrulls as an example, because, well, I'll get back to that later. Anyway, though, like I was saying earlier, as has often been said, man is the real monster. But what makes man the real monster is that man has the ability to choose between good and evil. So, and like I was saying earlier about various fictional races representing aspects of humanity. All of the things that make Skrulls bad are things people can have or would like to do in real life. So, defining an NPC as a bad guy is, in terms of writing them in a TTRPG, more about whether they're opposing the players than what race they are. I mean, because let's face it, I have actually played in a game where we had Dark Elves as player characters, and the bad guys were Dark Elves. Yeah, that happened. Why? Because it's about what you want, not what your race is. What your race is doesn't determine the entire course of your existence. It's where you start from, not where you go. And that is a big part here, is that, you have a warrior culture. The warrior culture doesn't exist in a vacuum. Warriors need weapons, like these laser pistols. Do you think these frontline ground troops actually made those laser pistols? No, they didn't. They pulled them out of an armory and started shooting at someone with them. Someone built them. And now, in this example, it was Skrulls. But for a different fictional race, maybe you actually buy the weapons from a third party. It's a possibility. Maybe you have a slave case that you have that you forced to make all the weapons for you. That's been done in fiction. But it's something that makes it's also something that you don't need to go into a lot of detail in when you're actually writing that aspect of a civilization. But it's there. It exists in the universe. Why Skrulls is an example? Well, Skrulls have been in comic books for decades. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 years. Yes, half the people in this picture are in fact Skrulls. The ones on the left. See, this was a shot from Secret Invasion where a ship was found on Earth that had a bunch of people in stasis, and they're like, "Oh, hey, well, we'll just let them out." And then wait, these are people that are supposed to be somewhere else. These must really be Skrulls, and then they kill them all. And that is one of the specific reasons why I chose Skrulls for this example. Because of the fact that, well, I'll get back to that later. Skrulls as a whole in Marvel Comics act like people with wrinkly chins and green skin. They're not fundamentally all that different from humans in terms of behavior. They have superpowers quite often. Some of them actually don't have superpowers, but that gets weird. It's an exception. Most Skrulls can shapeshift, which is the reason why the ones on the left don't look like Skrulls. However, some Skrulls have more powers than that, and these were all modified to be able to imitate the powers of whoever they're currently of these specific individuals that they're currently transformed into, which is why they're transformed to those individuals. And yeah, like I said, they get killed. Now, it's not that all Marvel Comics heroes have a kill on sight policy related to Skrulls. It's just that there are so many that do that it's an anomaly from an in-universe perspective. Like, for example, Clerk the Super Skrull has actually been thought to be dead more than once. He is still alive, actually. If I remember, he eventually ended up becoming the Skrull Emperor. Because the previous emperors got killed, I think. It's like I said, this is a guy who has a 60-year comic book publishing history. One of the oldest characters in Marvel Comics as a whole, not just one of the oldest Skrull characters, one of the oldest characters in Marvel Comics. He's done a lot over the years, despite not ever being the main character in a story. He's a secondary character to multiple decades seen doing a whole lot of stuff. And he's been around the block enough times that he's actually helped the heroes more than once. And that is where this gets interesting, because again, he's written as a person with superpowers who is doing people things for people reasons, and some of those reasons involve, the Skrulls are invading Earth, so they sent Kl'rt as part of the invasion. Hey, you know what? There's worse things. Worse things that have happened in Marvel Comics, actually. But anyways, next up, Jacinda Kl'rt's spawn. Kl'rt's daughter. She is nowhere near as old as Kl'rt from a real world perspective. I think like 10 or 15 years. I forgot to look up the actual date she was created, but it's relatively recent. But, she's Kl'rt's daughter, but she doesn't have his powers. She got infused with some sort of rock that made her immortal. Sort of. Okay, in theory, if you can remove the rock from her, and then she'll stop regenerating, but yeah, until then. Anyway, though, she got used as a metaphor for illegal aliens in the perspective of illegal immigrants. Because she comes to Earth because the Skrull Empire branded her a traitor for being someone who survived a botched artifact retrieval operation. And it was that botched artifact retrieval operation that caused her to have that magic rock stuck inside of her. The thing is, she was never a villain. Even when she was a loyal member of the Skrull military, she wasn't a villain. So, one of those interesting things. In case you're wondering, yes, this is actually Jacinda, shapeshifted into a human police officer. Paimok the Power Skrull. One of those affable bad guys who talks a mean fight, but when he talks, he actually has people listen to him, even if they're his enemies, because he's not going to waste your time with empty threats. If he's here to punch your face in, he'll just tell you that he's here to punch your face in and get on with it, and not waste time making bellicose posturing. However, this also means that he's the kind of bad guy you can talk to and negotiate with, and oh yeah, sometimes he's not actually a bad guy. He is, of course, someone who was engineered to be approximately equal in power to the original Super Skrull, and is actually quite dangerous. But he's also someone who sometimes helps heroes, so, Again, it's one of those things where he's looking out for the good of the Skrull Empire, most of the time anyways, and not necessarily in it for the evils. Which is, again, part of the reason why I went with the Skrulls as an example, is the Skrulls doing Skrull things for Skrull reasons are often things that, by human standards, are evil, but it's also one of those things that, by Skrull perspective, they're just doing what they normally do. Lyja's an interesting one because of the fact that while she originally came to Earth as part of Paimok's attempt at conquering Earth, Lyja ended up deciding she wanted to marry Johnny Storm instead of trying to help conquer the planet. And oh yeah, in one of the alternate futures, she is actually a member of the Fantastic Five and lives on Earth as a superhero. Oh yeah, and also Johnny Storm has a son with her. Skrull Queen Varanki. This is one of those characters that is very interesting because the fact that despite being a bad guy, the heroes are somehow worse than she is. And it's one of those head-scratching moments when you realize this. Because Varanki got introduced in comics as part of the Secret Invasion event. She was the driving force behind the Secret Invasion. She's part of some obscure Skrull religious sect that was trying to live out some prophecy where they had to conquer a new homeworld. And oh yeah, that's right, because Galactus ate several of their previous homeworlds, and there was nothing they could do about that. And they are actually in rather bad shape at this point because of just how many of their worlds have been destroyed over the years. Yeah, also, the Secret Invasion came after the Annihilation Wave event. The Annihilation Wave event actually had Galactus as a hero trying to prevent every planet in the entire universe from being destroyed, because Galactus eats planets and destroys the populations, but he doesn't want to kill everyone all at once. And that's kind of sort of what the Annihilation Wave was about. Thing is, over half the Skrull Empire got destroyed in the Annihilation Wave. So they were in really, really bad shape and decided they wanted to take over the Earth because why not? Oh yeah, by the way, that's Varanki right there. Was the scene where they retold her being exiled from the Skrull Empire. She was actually Skrull royalty. Anyway, though, I'm going to get back to Secret Invasion later, but the overall big picture of Secret Invasion is that they created an army of super Skrulls as part of their invasion force. Lots of super Skrulls. And almost all of them ended up dead. That's the thing with Secret Invasion that I personally found to be so strange as a comic book event. You have heroes who are supposed to be the good guys, ruthlessly murdering their enemies. Anyways, oh yeah, I was getting ahead of myself. Yeah, here we have one of the final scenes of Secret Invasion, where you have all of the heroes of Earth get together in a unified front to kick out the Skrull invaders off the planet and straight up murder most of them. I mean, the same heroes who in Civil War had a disagreement about whether or not it was right to do superheroing a certain way. A disagreement that was so heated that certain superheroes actually got killed over a disagreement about how to be superheroes properly. And these same heroes had less casualties in the Secret Invasion, because the Skrulls were fighting to try to subdue the heroes of Earth. They wanted to capture Earth and take over as a new homeworld. They weren't actually on Earth to murder everyone. That's part of the reason why it was a secret invasion. They were trying to force the heroes to stand down and not fight to the death. And the heroes are like, oh, no, we're going to fight to the death. And kill almost all of the Skrulls. And it's just one of those things that's this very, very strange thing when you look at it from a morality perspective. It's just like, why are you just murdering everyone? The same people who tell Frank Castle he's a bad person because he kills people who are actual murderers. And Castle usually doesn't even murder them. He actually just like kills them in like legit firefights too. He doesn't just like shoot them in their sleep or something stupid like that. No. And this, okay, the Skrulls, yeah, that was an actual fight, but the heroes were fighting to kill. They didn't care if they killed every single one of the Skrulls. And that's one of those things that I've always found to be morally backwards with the way Marvel Comics treats Skrulls, is that that's normal. Heroes will very, very often kill people just for being Skrulls. Oh yeah, And speaking of that, the Skrull cow incident, the first of these many cases, and something that Varanki mentions in Secret Invasion when she's giving an angry tirade to Reed Richards about the horrible ways that humans have treated Skrulls in the past. The first invasion of Earth by Skrulls got stopped when Reed Richards captured the Skrulls, and he decided that he would hypnotize them into living as cows. They got killed and eaten, and then we have the Skrull kill crew who are insane psychopaths with superpowers who decide to use their superpowers to go around Earth and kill every Skrull they can find. And you're like, wait, there's not that many Skrulls on Earth. Yeah, that's the funny thing in Marvel Comics is that they have retconned it so that actually there's a lot of Skrulls that have come to Earth secretly over the years just to, well, there's a variety of reasons. A lot of them, however, are part of Skrull plots for military conquest. It's just that it's long-term stuff, and they're agents seated in place that maybe possibly might actually do something later, which was part of the logic that the Skrull kill crew had, is that these are people who don't belong on Earth. These are people who we can't trust to be good people and don't value for being, you know, upstanding citizens. However, they're also people we don't have proof are not upstanding citizens. And that's the part about the Skrull kill crew that was so off-putting to me, is they would literally murder people just on suspicion of being Skrulls. Not because they'd actually done something bad, just for being Skrulls. And that's not heroic. That is evil. At any rate, though, this is one of those topics that, looking at it from a perspective of good and evil, you need to look at it from a abstract perspective, I guess is the simplest way to put it. You can't simply define it as like, oh, this is what they did, and this is why the heroes are doing this. Because you have to evaluate the actions of both the heroes and the so-called villains on a measure of being good and evil. People are villains because they do evil acts, not because they oppose the ostensible heroes. And that's one of those things that I find in comics that gets lost many times, and something that gets lost in TTRPGs too. It's because, like, there's the old trope of murder hobo heroes, where the so-called heroes, sometimes actually having an officially listed good alignment, just kill everyone they meet. That's not right from a moral perspective. And it's also something that just doesn't make sense in universe either. At any rate, those are my thoughts on the matter. Let me know in the comments what you think. See you guys next time.